Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special NYAPT Transfinder webinar, Best Practices, Navigating Uncharted Territory. We're still dealing with this pandemic, but we have a great webinar planned for you today, some great panelists. And as we tackle this topic, Pathway to Health, tips on being upbeat, not beat down during the pandemic. So we're going to give about 15 to 20 seconds to let people file in, and then we'll get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations here at Transfinder, and I just want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Dave, you can pop on screen. I'd like to just chat with you briefly. I just want to say that, first of all, it's the first time in a while that we've had one of these webinars. It's good to be back together. I know we really have missed him. You know, we hear over and over again at Transfinder, we're talking to so many school districts about how this year is going compared to last year, and for many, they say it's tougher than last year. So that's what the focus of today's topic is going to be about, is how do you deal with the times that we live in? How do you deal with real struggles? And then how also maybe you have some real solutions to how to deal with that. So I just want to thank our panelists who are giving of their time today. And we spoke yesterday. They gave us just some great information yesterday. So I know we're going to have a lively conversation. So looking forward to that. We do want to hear from you. We have a way for you to provide questions, and I promise you we get to those, and we get to those quickly. So I'm looking and monitoring, and Bridget also here with Transfinder, who's monitoring the back end, will help make sure that we get to those questions early. I also want to remind everybody that these webinars are all recorded, and you can find them on transfinder.com usually a day or so after. And so we do have quite a great inventory of webinars, and just, you know, if you glean just one or two tips, I think sometimes it can make all the difference in the world. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dave Christopher, the Executive Director of NYAPT, to the table. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm well, Rick. How are you? Good to be back.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for partnering with Transfinder in these award-winning webinar series.
Absolutely, absolutely. We backed off from the webinars a little bit to get school started up and respect everybody's schedule. And we actually were getting some calls. When are you going to start the webinars up again? So Rick and I got together, and here we are. So we're absolutely thrilled to be doing this again with you and partner with Transfinder. And you know, let's get this excellent panel introduced, and we'll get going. First of all, this is someone you probably haven't heard of in a while, Bill Harvey from the Linus Falls Linus School District. Bill, if you want to click on there, you go. Welcome, Bill. Welcome back. And Bill is a steady one for our webinars, and we'll welcome him back. Next, we have Kristen Sirku from Pine Valley Central School out in Western New York. Kristen is, I think this is her first webinar, and next is Don Russell, who we've seen before from Monroe Woodbury School District down the Hudson Valley. And when we decided to do webinars again, we wanted to obviously talk about the difficulty this year is compared to last, but we wanted to be upbeat because all of us are dealing with, you know, difficulties in our operations, dealing with, you know, what's going on with this pandemic. And I think I've chosen three of the most upbeat people that I could find, you know, dealing with struggles, but doing it with professionalism and smiles. See, they're all smiling. And I think they'll have a good information to share with us.
Dave ordered them to smile, by the way, just before we came on camera. So there was
I didn't have to do that. They were all doing that yesterday.
Just kidding.
Session, and excellent panel. So I'm very happy to be here with you all today. Rick, I'll turn it over to you to kind of guide us through this.
You picked a great panel, and I just want to say that, you know, I think you're going to see yourself in them and their stories, and there are real struggles, but at the end of the day, I was inspired, I got to say. So when we had our dry run yesterday, I left that feeling very inspired and just thinking how blessed your school districts are to have you guys at the helm. So you guys are truly,
thank you.
I don't use this word lightly, heroic. I really do think you are. So anyway, Bridget, do we have an opportunity to do a quick poll question?
Absolutely. I'll send it out to everybody right now.
Okay, so here's the question. We want to know, is this year tougher than last year? Just a simple question. We have our own experience of talking to school districts, but if you could just take 1 second and click on yes or no, is this year tougher than last year? That'd be great. And then we'll bring the panelists back on. Bridget, I don't know, how quickly can we get the results on this?
They're coming in pretty quick. I would probably give them maybe 10 more seconds.
That sounds great. So I'll just keep talking, and I'm gonna ask if our panelists could just would briefly introduce themselves, and we'll bring them back on screen in a moment as soon as we see a slowdown in the response here. But we'll start with Bill Harvey, and then Kristen and Dawn. Can you just tell me a little bit about you, your job, and maybe how long you've been in the industry, and just a sense about your district, maybe how many runs you have or how many drivers you have, whatever it is, that kind of give us a sense of the scope of your operation. So we'll start with Bill, and then Kristen and Dawn.
Thanks, Rick, and thanks for having us. We're glad to be here with you today. And I've been in the pupil transportation business for just about 38 years. I'm at Honey Falls Lima Central School, which is also where I went to school and graduated and grew up, so it's kind of nice. We're transporting a couple thousand kids and about 40 routes. I serve as a transportation director and the director of security. So with all the different things that have gone on over the last 18 months, it's been difficult to wear both those hats, and it's been a challenge, but as we said, we got to keep smiling, so we're doing well with it, and glad to be here to talk about it. I actually found our pre-session chat yesterday rather uplifting myself, so I need this as much as anybody does. Misery loves company, right?
All right, Kristen.
Hello. Yes, thank you for having me included in the panels today. I too am back at the district where I grew up and went to school and where I live in the community. I drove here for 14 years. I spent 3 years as a dispatcher at Springville Griffith Institute, and then I'm back here now as my first year at Pine Valley as a supervisor. Our district is small. We have under 600 students in our population and about 17 bus runs in district and out of district. And I'm glad to be here talking about the things that we're all experiencing every day, and ways that we can keep these smiles and share them with the people that we work with.
So cool. I think it's neat. I've met Bill. I don't know if you've ever said that you were at your district that you went to school with. If you did, I forgot. But that's so neat.
I haven't mentioned that.
To be back. That says so much about I don't know. There's something about being back at your roots and how much you've been able to see your communities grow, and now you're part of that institutional knowledge. So that's pretty awesome. Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn Russell. Yeah, I'm the transportation director for Monroe Woodbury School District. With our non-public students included, we're transporting approximately 9,000 students in a 100 square mile district. And we've got, we did do some outsourcing, which I think we'll touch on in a little bit. It's not something that traditionally Monroe Woodbury, that was never an undertaking of ours, but due to the driver shortage, we have outsourced some runs, but we still have 88 multi-tiered runs and about maybe 92 drivers, including our subs. So it's a busy operation.
It is. It is. Well, thank you so much. And you guys all gave so much content yesterday. I want to get to it. Before we get, Bridget, do you have the response to the survey? Okay. I think we hit a nerve here. So very good. 80% this year is tougher than last year. And I had a response here in the chat area from Scott, who says, yes, all schools are open and everyone is dealing with driver and staff shortages, which I know we'll be touching upon. So why don't we just segue into that? So what makes, and I should start with Kristen, because you're the lone one on the panel who says this year is not tougher than last year. So why don't you represent the 20%? That's good. Actually, we did it perfectly. We have, 4 boxes here, and one of the, not including me, I don't count, So Kristen, tell me why this year is not necessarily tougher than last year. It's got its own challenges, but why this year maybe seems a little bit better than last year.
I think that what we're finding is so many people rising to the occasion really to fill the gaps where we need them filled in our district. And with a little shift in how our routing was taken care of, we were able to head into the year without a shortage of drivers, believe it or not. And, you know, knowing, I think, a bit about what the expectations are and the guidelines are, and there's a little bit more consistency in that instead of the constant changing. It's been advantageous to know how to move forward instead of the constant mystery.
Great, great, super, thank you. So Dawn, I know you had a lot yesterday when we talked about this being a tougher year, and I think that it resonates with a lot of people. Can you give me just a sense of what are some of the key factors that's making this year? I think both you and Bill said this is the toughest year in your careers, which are, you know, pretty extensive careers. So tell me why.
For me, or for at least for my operation here at Monroe Woodbury, it's the driver shortage. Last year, you know, we did worry, and the year before, about what cleaning products we're going to use, how we're going to transport everybody, and then we had the hybrid schedule, and we had all that. But we managed to get through it. But then now, right, so here we are, and we've managed to get through it. It seems like easy almost. And now we're dealing with just not having enough drivers. And also, like Kristen said, you know, just the drivers that are here and are committed and are still here working for us, they're working so hard, and they're filling in a lot of gaps.
I mean, you said yesterday that all your dispatchers are driving.
That's right.
You're down 30 drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah, we're short 30 drivers. The dispatchers are driving. I'm driving. My assistant director moves up to dispatch, which she's fantastic at. And quite honestly, I'd rather drive a bus any day than sit at dispatch. Right? That's a huge responsibility. And you know, I'd rather be out with the kids. But that is that's what we're experiencing every day. So I'd be lying if I didn't stay every night when some nights I don't sleep, because I'm worried that, are we going to be able to move the kids? Are we going to be able to get them into school? So, but somehow we managed to do everything. And it really is a miracle. And the people that are here every day, it's to their credit. That's how it's happening. Because
that came out. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, that came out loud and clear. You're all three of you, and Dave, you know, also talking about your team and how they've all stepped up to the plate. I mean, it came through loud and clear. Dave, I mean, Bill, you mentioned also that this is the toughest year of your career. Tell me, I know there's some of those same factors. Tell me a little bit about what else is contributing to that.
And I think like Don and everybody else, right, driver shortage was tough, and we were at a point in time when we had to put services back, and we're back to full speed. I remember drivers last year stating that everything seemed so much calmer, you know, because we pulled back a lot of services, no courtesy services, hybrid schedules, lightly loaded buses. It made their life better, you know, it was quieter out there, so it was easier to do their job. And then this year, you know, we opened the throttle up back full, right? So it's and it's very very profound how quickly everybody is able to readjust or not readjust. So it's been hard for the kids. You know, 18 months of pandemic for a student, you know, 18 months is a lifetime for a kid. It's a long time. So trying to get back into the routine. And I mentioned yesterday, yeah, this has probably been the toughest year of my career, but I don't know if it's the circumstances. Like, is it I think it's been toughest for me, like personally. And I think it's because everything that we've been through, providing a level of leadership and guidance to our districts and our communities since the pandemic started, that basically you just get run down, you're wore out. You don't get a chance to catch your breath, and it's just another problem coming. We are masters at solving the problems, and you have to lay out your solutions. And knowing we weren't going to have enough drivers to start the year, we had to decide, do we cut routes, increase walking distance, you know, what is the solution? So we operate, you know, we basically mask it so that some of the routes are longer, we have fewer routes. Good news is I have more spare buses, right? So because there's nobody to drive them, but you know, we're getting through it. And then our job as leaders is to keep smiling and to not be walking around with your head down and looking deflated, right? So, you know, staying strong, be the cheerleader for the team, expressing our appreciation for those that are here fighting the fight with us every day. So it's a, you know, it's been super tough, but it's also been an honor to lead our team through this time and to watch us succeed. I just came from a leadership meeting in our district and everybody reports on how they're doing. And I said, you know, with transportation in our department here, it's like we're on plane, right? If you drive a motorboat and it's like you work hardest to get it up on plane. And once you get on plane, you can back off the throttle a little and let her cruise. That's kind of where we're at. So it's nice to be here.
A lot of times in a difficult situation, I'm thinking like sports, you know, when a star player is injured or something and you have to bring somebody in, sometimes you find people rising to the occasion that you maybe never would have given them that like level of responsibility, but all of a sudden they rise to the occasion. I mean, Dave, it looks like you're shaking your head. I mean, have you experienced that in your career?
Something Bill said I thought was interesting. I wonder if, you know, more experienced transportation managers who've got a lot of history and used to doing things certain ways are struggling a little harder with this than maybe new people like Kristen, who's newer at this, who, you know, on the management piece anyway, not so much the experience in transportation, but maybe more open to and more flexible in terms of how you're dealing with this. And I'm not suggesting that's the way it is, but to your point, Bill, I wonder if that's something to explore. You know, at one point I thought, oh my gosh, a new person into this business during the pandemic is probably really struggling. But maybe not. Maybe a new person, you know, a new transportation supervisor may not be struggling as much as someone who's been at this for a long time with all that history that they're trying to, you know, keep in place. You know, because we talked about this yesterday. What will the industry look like going forward?
Yeah, I think that's probably very true. I think about the year I trained as a school bus driver, and there was a driver out long-term. So it was like the toughest run in the district. And so many drivers would say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, you know, you're on the toughest run. And I didn't know any better. So I feel a little bit like that in this role here. Like, you know, oh, this year it's tough. And I think like, you know, I'm just going at it with everything I got, you know? So yeah, I think there are aspects of it that are really challenging, but you know, and I always kind of jokingly say, this is transportation. We just roll with it, you know? And if I just keep that mindset, we're moving forward. We're the doers. We're going to get it done. You know, that I mean, I guess if I knew it could be easier, I might feel like it's tougher, but this is just what we do.
Kristen, you don't sound like you're real new at this, let me tell you. You're not sounding new to me at all.
There's something for not knowing what you don't know. Like, you know, it's like the not having the contact that you look back and go, wow, that was pretty amazing. I didn't realize, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came up yesterday in our conversation, which I thought was really interesting, was the call outs, people calling in sick, and how to deal with that. And we're going to get into some other things, but that was one of the issues that was a struggle. But yet there was also some solutions that were provided. I know, Dawn, I think you mentioned Sunday night, you knew you were going to have 5 drivers out. And then Monday morning, there were 6 on top of the 5 that were also out. And that's going on top of the 30 that you're already down. And we talked about incentivizing. And so, you know, you had some ideas. And anybody else, please, Kristen, feel free to jump in, and Bill. Dealing with... it could be what, Bill, David, did you say it was like 10% is the average?
Well, that was always my experience, and I think what we're seeing just in our discussion yesterday, I think you're all seeing about 10% absenteeism. The problem is you don't have the bench, right? You don't have backup drivers to come in and fill those. So it's more of a serious issue today than it was, say, 3 years ago when you lost 10%. You had substitutes.
So Don, you kind of came up with, I think, a pretty interesting solution.
Well, you know, you don't have, unfortunately, remember when we used to tell the drivers to just take Tylenol or maybe something and lay down and take a nap and we'll see you this afternoon, right? Because now when you say you're sick, that's it, right? There's nothing more to be said. But honestly, you know, in my district, it's the expectation that all the directors, you know, including transportation, we attend board meetings, and you know, so you get, let's see, intimate, but you get to know your board members, and they see you, they recognize the struggles, and so what I have found is, you know, don't be afraid to ask for things that you've never asked for before, because this is real. And the first time I turned on the news and I saw that they were actually talking about the driver shortage. It was on Channel 12, the local news. Okay, now people are going to get it. They're going to believe it. It's on the news now. So, you know, having a really good Board of Education in my situation has been really helpful, because we have those big asks. They have allowed us to do a hiring incentive, $1,500. And then also a finder's fee of $250 if you recommend somebody and you're already an employee here. And literally the money is paid out in 90 days for new drivers, $1,500 if they work for 90 days, and then 45 days is the finder's fee, 45 days the person works. And then, so on top of that, what we're trying to do, and here's another ask, but we're trying to come up with an incentive. And you know, my incentive to come to work is to get my paycheck, right? So, but that doesn't always work. It used to be that we had a parking spot. You got a front row parking spot with perfect attendance. That was always great, but now that's kind of lost its luster. And so now we're looking at asking the board at a possible, we're trying to decide 3 hours maybe a week, an extra pay, whatever the person's hourly rate is. They would get to voucher if they had perfect attendance, and maybe doing it bi-weekly or weekly. And it's one of those no excuses. Like, you have to be here. You have to be here, or else you don't get it. You still get to use your sick day if you're not here. You can call out sick, but you won't get an incentive of an extra 3 hours of pay. So that's not approved yet, but we are working on that. And I just feel that if you have a supportive board, it doesn't look like a gift. It's more, you know, it's something we need to make our operation keep running.
Cost of doing business, I think is what they call it in the private sector. Now,
Yeah.
Bill, you mentioned it's a little bit of a challenge because of with COVID, you know, there's on the other side, if you have a little tickle in your throat, don't come to work. But you didn't say it quite like that. I exaggerated.
But that has been the messaging to our staff, is that if you're sick, stay home, right? And I know that, but it's like, how do you define or get tested out or something? But it is a struggle, right? That, I mean, the absenteeism. Now I typically would run, and I've done studies over the last several years, and we typically run about 10%. So if I have a bench of 10% with standby alternate drivers, I can cover our assignments. And I haven't had that bench now in 3 years. I'm preparing to build budget, and I'm like, should I just release those funds and use them some, you know, because I've got the staff, but right now my bench is across the hall in the office, right? It's like they're driving every day, my mechanics, myself. But the other thing that has been an absolute lifesaver this year has been some of the instructional staff that we trained up and we got them driving, and they have, like, sometimes you just can't quite get over the hump, and then you call over to middle school and one of the teachers will jump in and do a run. So we've expanded our bench by using our instructional staff, and it saved us.
Wow.
It really has. Even on sports trips, there's days when I don't have a route for them, but I got a sports trip that's not covered, and they genuinely want to help, you know, and they have helped. So,
Kristen, have you dealt with absenteeism as well?
Well, yeah, we have. And I think that there's a sense that the drivers realize that there's a shortage, and they're a little fearful to say, you know, I need to take the day. And I try to express to them, you know, we need you to be well. So if you need a day to get well, you know, we'll manage it. It's what we do. We are fortunate enough right now, and I hate to jinx anything in the universe, but you know, we're okay right now to make the coverage that we need. And some of that has to do with the timing of runs. This school year, we're able to kind of piggyback a few things if we need to and shift people around. But really, their health, their wellness is so important for them to prioritize and know that it's the right thing to do. I mean, don't come in if you don't feel like you're well enough, where let me take care of the concern about covering the run, you take care of you.
Yeah,
I think
that
that's
sends a very strong message that they are an individual, that they matter to you, because you don't want to lose sight of that feeling too when there's a true sickness. I'm sorry, Dave, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, encourage people positively to come in if they're well, because I know there's been stories this year where very dedicated people across the state have just showed up for work, in schools, not only school bus drivers, but staff in general. And they've been sick, and, maybe not COVID, but they've had a cold, or they've had this going on or that going on. And that just, concerns everyone. And to Don's point, I've always been a proponent of attendance incentives. I would be nervous about that today, though, because if you got somebody who's got $1,500 on the line, and they got, something going on, I could just see people walking in just to, get that check because they're a week away. I think that's one of the things we learned in the nursing homes, that, people showed up ill because they needed the money. And I just think you have to go cautiously forward with that kind of.
The incentive was for, I think, are you talking about the added bonus? Okay, not the
bonus.
$50.
Yeah,
That's
that was something that the industry should look at. It just makes me a little nervous in this environment. So.
I know it is. We do have other districts in our area that are. It has worked out pretty well, but I totally understand being skeptical of that, and that is the last thing that we want, is people coming to work sick that still get their sick day. They would just not get their 3 hours of incentive pay.
Yeah. Try it and see what happens. I mean, it's we have to try everything today to try to fill the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that, we're talking about employee illness, but I've experienced, and I'm sure others have too, where we have staff who has a family member, or like I just had a person that had their mother was not doing well, and the driver contacted me over the weekend, and I'm like, go take care of your family. Don't worry about it. We got you. I've had situations where people have something pop up, and I'm like, they're like, I know you're out of drivers. Don't worry about it. I got you. I'll drive the run, and that pays dividends, because I think that inspires them, because they know that when they really needed it, we said, go take care of what you got to take care of. We got your back, and that there's a payback to that. So I think that also it's a morale booster, because they're out telling us yeah, no problem. He didn't give me a hard time. He's like, and I genuinely mean that, when the day is done, your family's priority,
Yeah. It's a little bit of the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And man, I sure hope that when I'm not feeling good, I have a family member and I call it that.
But here's the management principle. The leadership principle, right? You know how frustrating that is when that happens, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I had something scheduled this afternoon, now I have to drive, or I've got 30 empty runs, and I got to listen to parents. So what you need to do is smile, walk in the back room, and then preach. Somehow you've got to hide that,
Don't punch a cinder block wall.
I mean, you're all human, as leaders, you're human, and that has impact.
Yeah.
So somehow you have to kind of separate that from the driver's lounge.
Yeah.
I want to get into something.
Game face on.
But real quickly, Bill, you also mentioned this idea that there's something that's lost when you have, like Dawn had mentioned, I think yesterday, to increase recruitment, you had 17 people show up and only 4 got permitted. And Bill, you had kind of an idea to help, maybe how do we close the loop on that so we don't lose, we capture that interest. You want to share that? I mean, I know we're not there yet, but you have some thoughts, right?
Well, I'm not sure which conversation you're referring to. Was it with the permits?
Yes.
Permits? Yeah. So it's typically, we really need to look at what we're doing and what we could do differently. And the permit, you'll interview somebody and they're really good. When we say, well, here's a study guide, I highlight the sections that they got us, and then go get your permit. Give us a shot when you got your permit. We'll kick off the training program. But you know, now maybe we don't want to let go of them. Maybe we want to say, how would day after tomorrow be at 9 o'clock? Could you come in and we'll get started studying to keep them engaged? We've seen too many like drift away. So, you know, that's something that we're looking hard at. We're not there yet, but what I do is if they leave for the permit, like I'm emailing them every other day or texting them, staying in touch. Is there anything at all you need? You know, come on in, we'll help you if you have a section you're struggling, but just to maintain the contact. But we're right on the verge of actually putting together, even if it's one-on-one.
Great idea.
Bring them in and get them ready for that permit. And I think that would be a better process. I think that everybody learns differently, and that would allow us to, and also start to build that relationship that's going to be necessary to teach them how to pass the CDL test.
And you may have some more one-on-one. I'm sorry, Dawn, were you saying something?
Well, I was going to add that I think that speaks very true. I think we kind of hand them that book with the mindset that, you know, if they want this, they're going to go get it. But it's intimidating when you start opening that manual and reading about this vehicle. You want me to drive this down the road with kids in it, you know, but to have that little bit of support, like, hey, you know, come in 2 days. I want you to work with the mechanic underneath this vehicle and get a look at these gauges and these things that you're reading about, you know, and have that extra connection to, you know, keeping them motivated, moving forward, answering those questions as they arise. Maybe too much time passes when we send them out the door before we connect with them again.
And Kristen, didn't you mention also something about bus monitors and getting them in this? Was it you or Dawn? One of you mentioned, I thought.
Yeah.
You Dawn?
Yeah, so one of our chapter members asked, you know, I just hired 8 monitors, and I was looking to see if anybody's doing a 10-hour course, because we share our resources that way, and we allow others to come to our operations. And of course, my response was, where the heck did you find 8 monitors, you know? And she said, oh, we have a $4,400 hiring incentive for monitors this time around. And I thought, oh, that just drove up the, you know, for everybody, right? Because here I was so proud of my $1,500 incentive for hiring drivers, and I mean, it's a little bit further than down the road, but, you know, they're getting $4,400 to become a monitor. You know, so, yeah, Dave.
Now, we talked yesterday about how do you, because I think first and foremost, as you guys are the leaders, that you need to be healthy. You need to be upbeat. You need, you know, as you're leading your staff and trying to have a smile on your face, what do you do to yourselves to be able to stay? So you carving out time for yourselves. I mean, can you just share a little bit about that before you get into talking about some of the tips to keep your team engaged? There was a common theme yesterday had to do with grandkids, which none of you seem old enough to have grandkids. But anyway, having said that, I mean, what kind of things do you do so that when you come in on Monday, and I know you're still probably working on the weekends a little bit, although some of you mentioned trying to have some disconnect from the phone, but it's not absolutely necessary. I'll just go right down the line. I'll start with Bill, Kristen, and Dawn. That's what it looks like on my screen. Dave, obviously, please jump in. What do you do when you know you are like your tank is empty and you need to refill it?
Yeah, I have honestly been there this year, and I'll tell you one of the simplest things that I did was I said I have to. It's like raising a kid, right? You need a regular routine. I got to start going to bed earlier. I'm getting older, and getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning is kicking my butt, you know. So, you know, I've got an earlier bedtime, and I drink less, which you'd think I would drink more, but I don't. It's like you have to find your happy place, and whether it's with the grandkids, which is mine, or my hunting camper, doing things, gardening around the house, working on the house with my wife. But I have tried to disconnect. I'm the type of guy that works 24/7. You send me an email on a Sunday morning, I'm replying to you. Dave knows because I drive him nuts with that, reaching out to him 24/7. But I have really tried to back off. If something's critical, I'll handle it. But otherwise, I have to just try and shut it off, and it'll be there Monday. I'm trying to be better about that.
Actually, before we go on to you, Kristen, Dave, I mean, Bill, you said something that triggered something. You also have learned to say no more or delegate.
Yes, I did. Yesterday I mentioned that there's certain things I just can't keep up with, and you have to say, look, I've got people around me. I've always done this. That doesn't mean I always have to do it, right? So bring in somebody and hand some things off, or say no. If you just can't do something, we're in an era where in our business, especially in transportation, the answer is like, right, traditionally it's never no. It's like, we'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. But, you know, we can't always do that. So it's yeah, those are some of the things that I've done.
That's very good. Very good. Kristen?
I think boundaries has been really important. New to the job and in this role, I'm really eager to give it everything that I've got. And I think that if I'm not careful and set some safe boundaries about my time when I'm with family, like, of course, responding to those urgent emails and messages throughout the weekend and evenings, we are all doing it, but to also remember to have a bit of space from it too. So I'm taking care of myself, and when I'm home, you know, family is a priority. And I also too, I'm a Mimi. I got some grandbabies that I want to be able to separate from this, you know, space from for a while. And, you know, I have a son, my youngest son's a senior this year, and we're getting ready to kick off basketball season, and, you know, all those things as a first priority so that I can be my best self when I'm sitting in this chair.
That's a good point. You know, if you're never replenished, then you're not going to be your best. I think I like that expression, best self. Like, I can only give so much. And if I'm completely always exhausted, I can't give my best self. So that's actually, I like that expression. Dawn?
Yeah, well, it's a thing for me with my grandchildren. I say it's like a paparazzi. When I arrive, you know, they're just like squealing with laughter and joy. They can't get enough of me. I wish everything in my life was like that, right? Wish everybody was so happy to see me. But they are. And so I just want to just absorb as much of that as I can get, you know, before they just ask you for the keys to the car and some cash. You know, but I just do, yeah, it does help me forget about the stress. There was a point where I really felt in the beginning of this year, I almost was tempted to put up an away message on my email on a Friday to say, I'll return to the office Monday. And I've never had to think about putting, because we work for a school district, so we just assume that everybody knows we're not here on the weekend, but they've forgotten, you know, so, and even with other, you know, with coworkers, colleagues, you know, so I never did put the away message, but it was tempted. And then, so I set aside one day on the weekend where I absolutely, unless it's by accident, don't open my email and look at it. And if it's an emergency, I'll text me.
I know one person, an association person who his wife hides his phone over the weekend, so he can't even get to it I think she checks on it once in a while to make sure there's nothing urgent, but he's like, that's just the way it is. So,
You know, one thing that Dave Christopher said yesterday that, you know, I know he misses this action, you know, being actually there on the job doing it. And he said something to the effect about, you know, that he hopes that as an association, that is he doing enough? Are they doing enough? And I really thought about that. It resonated with me because, you know, NYAPT they're always there for us. And so when it made me think about how people really need to be involved right now in their association, you know, their chapters, and just, you know, even if it's just logging into your Zoom meeting and find out what's going on and talking to you know, to people, and then that comes back to NYAPT. Like, we really need NYAPT, and, you know, so I just felt that Dave needs to know that what they do for us does make a difference. It really does. It does for me.
Thank you, Don. I think, you know, what I'm hearing here is of great concern, because as I travel around, talk to a lot of different people, there's a lot of stress on you folks. You know, certainly the drivers are stressed, the mechanics and folks that, you know, that work with you, but there's a lot of stress on the top leader in the transportation system. And the reason for that, I think, is because you got a lot of responsibility, and you're really the only one in your operation, right, in your school district, you know, that really gets the whole picture. I mean, the administrators, superintendents, principals, You know, they get a piece of it, they understand a piece of it, but they don't get the whole picture. And nor do your drivers or your other staff. You understand the whole thing because you're living it. And it's a great concern because you need to take care of yourselves, because when I travel around, this is what I hear. I hear transportation leaders saying, oh, I've got 200 days left. I've got one more year left. I've got, you know, and many of our leaders are retiring. Over the past, year, several have left, and because they could, and that's, in my view, is a serious issue, because you folks get it, and you are the leaders of the whole safety piece, right? And we can't allow the safety of our systems to be jeopardized by this pandemic, and certainly there are things going on out there that concern us, but I think that the key to it are people in your seats, because you get it, you understand holistically the whole system where others don't.
That's good. I want to move into the, I'm going to steal an expression from Kristen about the tone of positivity. But before I get to Kristen first, and then I want everybody to jump in on what you are doing to help build that morale in your departments. I'm going to ask the attendees. Usually I'm asking for questions, but right now I also, if I see ideas that you guys do, I'm going to throw them in here. So type away. I'd love to have lots of ideas of what you're doing, or if it's your boss that does it, that's great. Or a neighboring district that's doing it, you want to share the credit, that's fine. And give them credit for that. But if you could go into the questions area here, and instead of putting a question, I mean, you can feel free to write a question, but say, what are you doing to keep morale up? What do you do to deal with some of the struggles that some of your team is having? Now, Kristen, you talked about a bunch of stuff. Post-it notes. I'm not going to say any further. I'll let you jump into those, but share some of the things that you're doing in your district, and then everybody else, please just jump right in to keep that level of morale up.
Well, in our hallway here, it goes from the shop down to the driver's room. We have an eraser board, a big board that tracks our routes for the day, and next to that, I've started to add things to consider. So today is Tuesday. So our Tuesday tip this week is to surround yourself with people that make you want to do better. So, that was my encouragement to the drivers. Like, do you center yourself where there's people that make you push yourself, in your career, in your personal life to be better. Our level of best self varies, I imagine, from day to day with what we're managing. But that was our thought this week, and on Fridays, we use the board for a Friday board. And I want them to think about the week. And, 1 week I asked them on Post-its to include who made you smile today, and what was it? What made you smile? Was it, one driver added that all of her student crossers looked to her before they crossed, and another driver smiled because she got her new bus that week. And each of these things are little bits. And the following week, my request was, tell me how you made someone else smile. That effort of exchanging, giving it back, and for some drivers it was, I made a coworker smile because I started her bus for her on a colder morning. And what is it that you've done to give back and to that connectedness as a team, that what we're doing, and that constant bringing it to the front of your mind, what you could give a little, and how is it that you're receiving that helps you to kind of move forward with that mindset to give back.
Share the little factoid about the 4-year-old.
Oh, last week's tip was that during any given day, a 4-year-old will usually laugh. I believe it's like 600 times in a day they'll laugh. For an adult, it's only between 1 and 300 times that we laugh in a day. So my tip was to be 4 years old again today. So if we could just find those little bits that make us smile or snicker or laugh, or share that with a coworker or a friend, I think that it brings a little sunshine to the day.
That's great. Others, please jump in. What do you do, Dawn? What do you do to keep your staff upbeat?
Well, one of the things, I try very hard to, like we said in the beginning of the show, just because it is upsetting, especially when people don't come to work, so you go out there and you have to adjust your face and really appreciate the people that are there who are helping out, doing 5 more things than they ever set out to do in that day. We also are involved as an operation in, it's called Project Linus, where we're all sewing these, not sewing, but we tie knots and we make these blankets for needy children. And every year we try to break our record. So last year we had, so you donate $5. The person who's running it gives you your material, and then you prepare it, you turn it back in, and hopefully you buy another one for $5. And you just keep it going. Last year we did 546 blankets. So it brings us together, and we're very.
That's going to the foster care system, right?
Right, foster care. If you're in an emergency room, anything, you could go to the hospital for any reason.
Yeah.
And, they'll have, and they get, the little Project Linus sticker sewed into them, and they get finished along the way, and then they're sealed individually and given out to children that need them for comfort. And we just love that project, and we usually take a big photo, and but one simple thing, and I have to give all the credit to our dispatcher Kelly, and she will get on the radio on Friday, and she will and it's so heartfelt, and it's the smallest thing, but it's huge to the drivers and attendants. She said she'll get, attention to the drivers. We had one of the hardest weeks ever, and we could not have done this without you. I just want to say thank you. We can't do that. And that just is huge. It makes my heart, I don't get teary sometimes, but I know there's no crying in transportation, but sometimes.
I'm a big baby. I'm going to go to Amanda, who makes a comment here, and then Bill, feel free to jump in, and Dave too. Amanda says, I really appreciate our boss remembers to say thank you, even when things are not ideal. It's simple, but impactful. As a driver, you don't feel alone in the madness. And I know you've all talked about that, just saying thank you, being in the moment. Bill, you talked about it yesterday. Why don't you jump in and talk about just being present, I think is the expression you used yesterday.
I think that, as you know, a lot of the things I do, like to uplift the staff, revolves around food. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we'll be announcing our holiday dinner, where I'll be buying hams and turkeys and cooking here for everybody. But it's really nice. It brings everybody together. Day in, day out, I think the presence, our presence, and even our staff, don't forget that it's very important with that, what I would call like the mid-level, the frontline people, the dispatchers, the head mechanic, and making sure, but I try myself to make sure to be out there to greet people, to wish them a good weekend. I'm on the sidewalk every day, barring some unforeseen thing, or if I'm driving, but getting on the radio on Friday afternoon as they're pulling out of our first dismissal school. And I thank everybody, as Don said, a thank you, and have a great weekend, and wave to them, stand there, wave to every single bus driver. And I think that just them knowing you're there, you're smiling. I remember last year on one of our sessions here stating that, a bus driver, I was coming back in from my route, and the driver walked up beside me and said, "What's the matter? You look like you're down on a bad day. It's a red day." He was like, "What's that mean?" And so I told him how short we were. He's like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And that was a light bulb moment for me, because you said that a few minutes ago, Rick, or Dave did, I guess, that we know the whole picture, right? And the staff doesn't. So you got two choices. You either share it with them, or put a smile on your face, and spread some cheer, right? So because they don't need to know that. That's my job to carry that, So it's important, I think, to thank those that are here, and to just be out there and have the contact, right? It's real easy to hide in your office and go, "Woe's me." So.
And Bill, you mentioned yesterday you're looking at creating a town. I don't think you've started yet, but town hall meetings that you think you want to start doing.
I always did those, and we had to stop doing them because I couldn't bring everybody into the driver's room. or our break room, but you know, those resume. Our first one is tomorrow, and it's a great opportunity. And it actually, like, it just feels good once you get the meeting going. Everybody opens up, and you know, we cover things, and if somebody's got issues, but it's also a great opportunity to thank people and keep them in the loop. So I think that's what I'm trying to get back to is closing that communication gap. For so long, it was we were communicating critical information that we needed to know to get through the pandemic and the crisis, and now we need to kind of just get back, let them know what's going on, and have more of a team communication. So we're really excited. I'm really excited to kick that off tomorrow, and we do those every 2 to 3 weeks. And then there's a summary that goes out in an email for anybody that wasn't able to join us, so everybody knows what's going on. I'm trying to get back to normal a little.
Yeah, I know one of the things that came up yesterday, and that's come up in definite in other webinars, is just the idea that, you know, drivers can sometimes feel like they're on an island, and that kind of helps to bring them back into the fold and to feel like they're part of the bigger picture there. Right. Dawnette gives a couple of points I want to read here. She says, I make sure to leave a note on a driver's hook when they have gone above and beyond to help. She CCs the supervisor's file so that they can look back on that when it's time for evaluation. So that's kind of nice that there's a little bit of a tracking on the positive side, not just the paper trail we hear about on the negative side. And she also mentioned, I began each monthly meeting with a kudos. Staff can say thank you to any other staff, and I call out those that have done extra to help. So again, I think we see a common theme here. You know, the thank you goes a long way. It really does. Dave, anything you want to weigh in on this?
No, I think you've hit some great things. You know, to that point with the kudos on the hook, I think that's a great idea. We had some conversations with our professional development team here at NYAPT about some workshops for February, and we came up with one about coaching drivers up, and the reason for that is because, you know, everybody makes errors, and you need to fix those and move on. And the thought was that instead of the old way of, you know, kind of the negative progressive discipline thing, let's work with our drivers to coach them up to where we need them to be, and to fix problems on a positive way, because, you know, we need them to stay with us. That's all part of the retainment piece, right? Because, you know, we're working so hard to recruit drivers, but we also need to figure out ways to keep the ones that we have, because, you know, certainly they're valuable to our students and our operation. So we're thinking about some kind of a workshop on that to, you know, part of that coaching, right, is telling people when you do good things on a regular basis and saying thank you. And you know, that's all part of, you know, what coaches do. It's not always negative. Just something we're considering for February.
One of the things, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the little note on the hook. Like if we get an email or a note or a call that a driver or monitor did something really good, or kudos to the team, not only do I put that out there, make sure that that driver, and I thanks for the great job every day, I appreciate you, but I save those, and when I have my town hall meetings, I read them to everybody. It's one thing to praise a person one-on-one. It's another thing to praise them in front of their peers and say, hey, look at Kristen did this, you know, a great job. And I know many of you do that same thing every day, but it allows us to celebrate the good news, right?
Right. That's great. That's great. One thing I was thinking about, what came up a little bit yesterday, was this idea that, so that's part of what happens on the, I think, the top-down approach, or even collegially, that's a word. But also, you know, when I had the driver webinar a few weeks back, their connection to students also plays a huge role in feeling purposeful and feeling like it's almost like a calling. I think we would kind of all agree that you guys, it's more than just a job, and it's definitely an adventure. And so, Kristen, you mentioned this idea about getting access to school announcements, so like when they know, like when maybe a student is having a birthday or things like that.
Yeah.
More thing that helps.
We've worked with the technology department here, and they're setting us up currently so that on a reel throughout the day, as drivers come and go, they'll see the elementary school announcements, and then they'll see the high school announcements. So they'll be able to know when their students have a birthday, or when there's a sporting event, or when the play is, so that they can, if they notice their student's name, like, hey, he rides my bus, it will give them the opportunity to kind of connect with them and talk to them about, how was the game last night? Did you have fun? Did you, just another means of, besides the Johnny, back in your seat, backpack on your lap kind of conversations, but to have that connection with those students and get to feel that connection to the district. I referred to it yesterday like we're on the island,
Where it makes
misfit toys, but
like,
but just saying that, we want that connection to the people that we move around every day, so we're part of the district and stay connected.
and it's no fun for the driver, I'm assuming, to keep saying, sit down, Johnny, sit down, Johnny. And so it does make them feel like I do like my job, because I'm not always being the disciplinarian. I can actually feel like I'm investing in a student's life. One of the drivers that spoke, a couple months back in that webinar, she talked about college students running into them in a grocery store, and they still remembered her name and said, you changed my life, or you really made my school experience so much better than it would have been. And so all the things you're doing to keep them there is awesome. And then this is just one more part of that picture, because if they feel like getting in that seat every morning and every afternoon, they're actually changing lives and they're connecting.
Yeah, I always tell my drivers, you could be transporting the next president, you could, lawyers and doctors, and, having that connection. You're that first smiling face. We've said it in this industry for years. You might be the only one that says good morning and uses a student's name, and, to have that additional connection to them, and they're like, oh, she's not just my bus driver, but she knows I'm in the play. She knows I play the clarinet. She knows, those things about me. And that connection, you'll find that those behaviors start to minimize on the bus when you have that more of a connection with a student.
That's great. All right, we are coming close to wrapping this up. Dave, I'm deciding back and forth in my head. Do I make you first or last? You get mad at me when you're last. I can make you in the middle. Oh, Bill, you want to go first, Bill?
No, I want Dave to go first.
You want Dave to go first?
He always has to go last.
All right, so we'll make the newbie go last. That's you, Kristen.
Okay.
You're the newbie to the webinar family as well, so that's what I'm referring to. So Dave, if you want to give us here's what I always describe it as. It's that one takeaway. There's a lot of stuff here. I hope people rewatch, and we know they do actually by our stats. We can see people do watch these on a different time. But what's that one thing that maybe it's a transportation supervisor that goes back to the offices? I can do one thing. This is one thing I can do that I learned from this idea, or one thing that they might do to talk to their supervisor or their superintendent even. So what's that one takeaway? I'm going to start with Dawn, Bill. I'm going to start with Dave. I forgot. Where am I? I'm starting with Bill. I'm starting with Dave. I'm losing my mind. I'm starting with Dave. I'm going to Dawn, and then to Bill, and we're closing it up with Kristen the newbie. Sorry. So, David, one takeaway.
I'm lost.
What's one takeaway you want people to have who have attended this? That they
I wasn't sure if I was first or last. That's my takeaway. No, I think think about your communication skills, because that's what we're really talking about here. How well do we communicate with people verbally, and our facial expressions and all that stuff, and it's hard, right? When you're in the thick of it during the day, sometimes it's hard to project that positivity. And I think the bottom line is we have to do that for our own well-being, for our own health and well-being, because I said this last year. One of our principals used to give announcements every morning when I was at the schools, and he said, I want you all to go out and have a great day, and the choice is yours. And that's really what this is all about.
That's great. Awesome. Bill, I think you're next.
Who knows?
All right, I would. My takeaway is going to relate to a little story. On Halloween, my wife and I were greeting trick-or-treaters at the front door. And these kids came up, a couple of little girls, and one was, I don't know, a princess or something. I don't know what character she was, but her and her sister came and they trick-or-treat. My wife gave them a treat. And the girls looked at me, and the one girl just like became giddy, and she's laughing, and she goes, "That's my sister. She's the one that left her clarinet on the bus." And they turned and ran away. And it's like, I get the biggest kick out of the things because when they knock on our door and we open it, they're like, "That's the bus dude." And, you know, so my takeaway is celebrate the little things. It's the little moments that warm your heart, that keep you in the game. And that's what keeps all of us, our drivers, monitors, everybody. Celebrate the little things.
That's a great takeaway.
Great point.
Yes, you know, I agree, you know, celebrate all those little things. And also, I know it's predominantly about us and, you know, what we're doing for our people, but, you know, for yourself. I mean, for me personally, when I think I can't go anymore, I look just over there, her door's shut right now, but my assistant director, she's my new assistant director. She just looks at me, smiles every single time, and she's like, "There's always something worse. It's all right." You know, she's the person that gives me, you know, she lets me know we're going to do this, right? It's teamwork. It's going to happen. And, you know, so we all need that person, whoever it is in your operation, to keep you inspired.
It always is nice to hear. My daughter's like that. My daughter just got married in September. And always, even in college, be like, "Is everything going to be all right, Dad?" "Everything's going to be all right, though, right?" She just needed me to hear it. I always felt like, if I can't guarantee it, I don't want to lie to her. But now I realize she just needed to hear me say, "It's going to be okay."
Yeah, there's always something worse.
There's always something worse. And you look back on things, you go, wow, somehow we made it. Somehow we made it. Kristen, final takeaway.
Yeah. I think both Dawn and Bill said, you know, reaching out and asking for support, you know, and knowing who your people are in the industry, whether it's the organization or within your district, that we all are, we're all in different setups, but we're managing so many of the same things, and just saying like, "Hey, I have that struggle too," and staying connected, and, you know, seeing the good in the communication, you know, and it's easy to see those negative things that are happening or those struggles. But, you know, when I had a driver the other day, all of these troubles that she's managing on the bus, and I said to her, like, "Okay, now tell me something good. Tell me something good that's going on, you know, somewhere you've made progress with your students, or are you settling into your, you know, you told me the not so good. I want to hear the good now." And, you know, offering them that opportunity to, you know, I can hear you, I can support you and help you, but you tell me why you're here today, and we'll work from there.
That is great. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I want to thank the panelists. You guys always, I'm always inspired. I left yesterday. I feel even more inspired today. So thank you for those takeaways. Thank you for all your insights. I know that I'm sure it meant a lot to our attendees as well. And speaking of attendees, so if you have a story, we want to have the more panelists we can get, the better, because there are lots of ideas out there. So if you have a story of what's worked for you, it might make its way into a webinar. It might make its way into a white paper. And again, this is any district across North America. We're looking for any and all stories to share, because I think that's why these webinars have been so successful, right, Dave, is the fact that we're hearing from each other. And I think the reason why people miss when we're not doing them is because they need to hear that, you know, be reinforcement, like, okay, I'm not in this alone. Because I think transportation supervisors can feel like they're on an island too. It's not just the drivers. So please share your stories. Just send them at mystory@transfinder.com. And stay tuned. We don't have a hard date yet, but I'd like to close out the year with another webinar. And then we start the new year in January with some rich takeaways there as well. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. But thanks to all those for attending today. And again, I want to just thank our panelists. I want to thank Dave. As was said yesterday, behind closed doors, I think we need to say it publicly. It's already, I know Dawn didn't say it earlier. Thank you for your leadership, Dave. Thank you for NYAPT's leadership. It's a, you know, it's a huge, it is a task. It is a burden, and we appreciate all you do for our industry.
Team effort.
That's right.
Well, have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.